Back here, WHIP, Phillies #1 college radio station. My next guest is one of the most diligent men in the industry. He does play-by-play for baseball, basketball, and football. You usually see his face on the television for the Philadelphia Phillies, and he'll be on the call for the big matchup on campus here at the Liacouras Center on Thursday night. It's Temple and LaSalle, so let's welcome in Tom McCarthy. Tom, Zach Gelb here, Temple Sports Hour. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing great myself, and I know that you just got back from Phillies camp. What's the feel down there in Florida as the Phillies get ready to possibly go on an NL East championship run? I know for a fact, though, that they aren't the favorites in this division, with both Washington and the Braves being marked the favorites by most writers.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the one thing that I did notice while I was down there, obviously they're healthy. Guys are moving a lot better, like Utley and Howard, which is a big deal. Talked to Doc a little bit, and he feels pretty comfortable that he's made some adjustments with his motion, so he's going to be a little more effective. At least he thinks he is. But they were laughing a lot, and I think that's a big deal, Zach. I mean, last year I didn't see them joking around and doing the things that you would normally see the Phillies do, whether it be in spring training, and that's partly because Howard and Utley weren't really around during spring training to play. But they look pretty good. I mean, it's early. It's tough to tell. Their first inter-squad game will be Friday, and then their first scrimmage will be Saturday against the Astros. So, we'll get a better idea a week or so in. But so far, so good. I watched live batting practice the other day with Roy Halladay, Cole Hamels, Jonathan Papelbon, guys like that. And, early on, they look pretty good. They look refreshed, and I know they're anticipating and excited to get things rolling.
So you said you saw Roy Halladay. You said he feels confident. How does the organization feel about him? Because I know he said the other day his lower back was more of an issue last year than it was his shoulder.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we had heard rumblings at one point last year that, shoulder, back, it was a combination of things. But as it turns out, it may have just been his lower back that was causing the shoulder problems because his mechanics were so off. And, he was kind of describing it to us the other day. Larry Anderson and I were in the hallway talking about what he was trying to do, and he said he was almost slinging the ball last year, and because of that, he had very little on any of the pitches that he threw. So he's made some adjustments. He looks great physically. He looks like he's a little thinner. He said he's worked on his core to be physically a little bit more sound from that standpoint, and he feels like he's getting loose, which that was a big term last year, Zach. He never felt like he was getting loose when he was out on the mound. So because of that, his mechanics were all out of whack, and it was causing all of these different issues with his motion. He doesn't anticipate that he'll have those same issues this year.
To me, the biggest concern when you look at this team is the outfield. You have three guys that weren't here a year ago, or even if you look at Dom Brown, he's been inconsistent so far. So when you look at this outfield, what impresses you, and what do you think they need to improve on?
I think the thing that impresses me the most is Ben Revere's defense, which is kind of a big deal, the way he's been able to go get it during the course of his career. He's not going to be any kind of a power hitter. I think we all know that. But I am impressed with the fact that he's able to go get it and provide, a spark defensively out there. I think that's important, particularly with the objective of the Phillies being to get back to the basics of being a better defensive team. What concerns me is just what you said, the inexperience in left field and in right field. Now, left field is up for grabs. Right field is up for grabs. I mean, it is not set yet as far as who is going to be in those positions. I think the hope is that a guy like Darren Ruff can win the left field job and provide a pretty good spark of power. And in right field, Delman Young is not going to start the spring because of an injury. He may not even start the regular season because of an injury. So you're possibly looking at a platoon of Dominic Brown and John Mayberry, or just Dominic Brown straight up. So that's kind of concerning because, I don't know if either one of those guys were really all that effective when they were getting a chance to play.
To me, when you have question marks at all three outfield positions, you're going to need your backbones of the lineups to really step up. And you look at a Ryan Howard and a Chase Utley, both who were injured a little bit last season, and then they struggled through the second part of that season. When you look at Howard and Utley, what do you expect out of them in the 2013 campaign? Can Howard raise that average a little bit?
Well, I think more than anything is producing RBIs more. He was on pace for 120 RBIs last year, which would be great if he can do something like that, but it would be even better if he can do more than that. He's moving around quite well over at first base, which is a very good thing. I think what you hope from those guys is just what you said, that they continue to be the backbone or Friday and Saturday, off on Sunday against the Tigers when the Phillies go to Lakeland. Howard is scheduled to play Friday and Saturday with the possibility of playing on Sunday, too. So I think that's a good sign. Both feel like they could be as productive as they used to be, but I still think that's a question. But I think it's something everybody's anticipating and is excited to see if it happens.
Tom McCarthy joins us here on the hotline, Phillies #1 college radio station, WHIP. Zach Gelb here with you. And the big talks here on Temple's campus is this game coming up tomorrow night. Big 5 matchup, Temple and LaSalle. Tom will be on the call for CBS Sports Network. And Tom, when you look at these two teams in Temple and LaSalle, Ramon Galloway and Khalif Wyatt are the two players that stand out to me. You can make a case for either one of them that they could be the best player in the A-10. You must be jumping out of your seat in anticipation for this one.
Well, I think it's going to be a great one. I think it's going to come down to Temple's three-point defense more than anything else.
It's been terrible this year.
And LaSalle is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the Atlantic 10. So it's going to be important for somehow Temple to bear down and come up with some kind of defense, because their defense has really struggled this year, I think, in key games. The St. Joe's game is a game case in point. They need to be better defensively, and if they're not, then they're going to be in trouble, because obviously, Galloway and Garland and Tyreek Duran. I mean, these guys can shoot three. They can also get to the free throw line, but they can shoot the three, and it'll be a difficult task if they can't slow those guys down.
I completely agree with you. Charlotte, who's one of the worst A-10 three-point teams, came into the Liacouras Center and had a successful night up against these Temple Owls from three. And a big part of that is this defense, like you mentioned, has been awful, and they're relying too much on Khalif Wyatt, who we all know isn't the best defensive player in this world. And all year long, people have been asking Fran Dunphy, who's the third man going to be behind Khalif Wyatt and Anthony Lee, who off the bench or maybe even in the starting role can have an effective game versus LaSalle beside Khalif Wyatt and Anthony Lee.
I think Scooty Randall's got to step up and be big. Scooty, I think, had a great first game, and everybody was excited about what he was potentially able to bring to the team, off the injury from a year ago. But I think if you asked him, and if he was honest with you, it's been a decent year, but it has not been the year that he had hoped for. So I think it's important for him to be successful. And I always think it's important for Raleigh or Jefferson to somehow find his shot. I know it hasn't been there this year. The 10 to 12-foot jump shot just has been, at times, horrific. But I think that they need more out of him, too. Temple does not go that deep, as everybody knows, off the bench. I mean, LaSalle goes a little deeper, not overwhelmingly more. But I think those two guys have to step up and have big games defensively and offensively.
When you look at this LaSalle team, everyone talks about the plethora of their guard plays and their ability to really just spread the basketball. But to major concern, if I'm Fran Dunphy, is their big man in Steve Zach and Jarrell Wright. I know that they don't put up the biggest numbers in the world, but looking at this Temple team and covering it through the course of the season, you've seen Bedamon, you've seen Hagens, even Mason Plumlee come in, and every team that basically come in here has been able to pound the ball down low against this Temple's defense. I would have to imagine that Steve Zach and Jarrell Wright get some more burn and some more looks down low come tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think in particular Jarrell Wright. I think athletically, he has the ability to maybe not be a Ron Roberts type from St. Joseph's, because we know that he had a very good game against Temple, but he can be an athletic force inside. Zach's a little different. He's bigger, but he's a little different. But I think that Jarrell Wright, if he does indeed get the start, and he and Zach have been switching back and forth for LaSalle, he's athletic enough that he can cause some problems inside. But I agree with you. I think the objective is, LaSalle's not going to change who they are. They're going to shoot the threes. But I also think that they will recognize if there's an advantage inside, they will try to exploit that advantage to also complement what they're doing from the outside.
Temple right now, they sit at 17-8. They have 6 more games to go. LaSalle, Charlotte, Detroit, Rhode Island, Fordham, and then they wrap things up with VCU at the Liacouras Center as Tom McCarthy joins us on the hotline. Do you think this Temple team's going to make the tournament?
Yes, I do. The NCAA tournament?
Yes.
It's funny, Zach. I still think that they have a chance to. In fact, somebody asked me the other day if you gave me they asked for a dark horse to win the A-10 tournament, and I said Temple, and partly because these guys have the ability to play as a team and to be effectively balanced. St. Louis right now is the most balanced team in the Atlantic 10, but Temple does have the ability to be a balanced team. Whether like it or not, will depend on what the A-10 gets and how deep they get into the A-10 tournament. That VCU game at the end of the year is a big one. This is a big one because LaSalle's RPI is very good right now. I think it depends on if they get 4 or 5 because I think VCU is in. I think St. Louis is in. I think Butler is in. And I think LaSalle is the 4th team. If they get a 5th team, it'll depend on what happens in the tournament, whether it's Temple, whether it's Xavier, whether it's one of those teams that right now are on the periphery that are able to slide in.
And this A-10 conference is very rigorous, and we've seen it all throughout the season so far covering this team. But I think you hit it right, the nail right on the head. You look at the job Jim Cruz done at St. Louis after losing Rick Majerus. That's just been absolutely incredible watching this team go this year.
Well, I did the game on Tuesday night against VCU, and it was a stunner. Not that they won, because I thought there was a chance they could win, but just the way they won and the way they dominated, it was an absolute stunner. Jim Cruz has done a phenomenal job. He's basically taken what Rick Majerus did and is incorporating just a little bit of an aggressive defense. But he's been fantastic, and they are the most balanced team. Zach, they have 3 guys coming off the bench that could easily start for any team in the Atlantic 10, any team. And to me, that kind of depth and that kind of ability off the bench is really hard to find.
2 more questions as we're talking to Tom McCarthy. And Tom, you really can't talk to an announcer in this area without mentioning the late, great Harry Kalas, and you were very close to him. And I remember as a kid growing up, my dad telling me the bedtime stories of a Michael Jack Schmidt home run call saying it's out of here, or where you have Scott Graham, who actually won a Harry Kalas voice impersonation to get his career going. And people always call John Facenda the voice of God. And then if you look at John Facenda, then if you look at Harry Kalas, he would have to be the son of God. So you've known Harry Kalas for quite some time. Do you have any particular story that you'd like to share with us about him?
Well, I mean, Harry was unbelievably important to all of us. I mean, not only to the Philly fans, but also all of us that got a chance to work with him. You know, the thing that I remember more than anything else is the first home run call I ever had doing the Phillies games was a Scott Rowland home run. And all I could do was look to my right, and Harry was sitting there, and he was just nodding his head yes. As I was finishing out the call. And to me, that was unbelievable affirmation. You know, when I left to go to the Mets for the 2 years I was there, the first guy that called me was Harry to say, this is the right career move. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you. When I came back to the Phillies to do television and eventually would take over for him when he retired, and that was what everybody thought, including me, was 5-10 years down the road, he was, again, the first guy to call me and say how happy he was that I was coming back, that I was coming over to TV, that I was going to be part of what he was doing on a daily basis. So, you know, we miss him every day. I mean, and with this run that the team's been on, you always wonder what he would have sounded like calling the games and the plays that have taken place for this team since his passing.
He was just such a gregarious person. I've never really heard anyone ever say a bad word about Harry Kalas. But before we let you go, I understand that you have a scholarship for college students in junior and their senior year. I'm only a freshman, so I'm not eligible for it. But tell me a little bit more about the scholarship.
Well, this will be the 4th year that we're doing it. It's a $1,500 scholarship, which we're actually going to increase as the years move on. But it's part of the Philly Broadcasters Foundation. In fact, phillybroadcasters.org is where folks can go to get the application. And what it is, it's, you know, the folks that are eligible are rising juniors or seniors that go to a college in the Delaware Valley that are concentrating on working in broadcasting, not only doing what you're doing or doing what I do for a living, but it could be behind the scenes. There could be a budding producer or a budding director or somebody who does, you know, artistic work for television stations or stuff like that. And all of us, you know, guys at the Phillies take all the applications and we read them, we rank them, and then we present the award to whomever it is we think has the abilities and the work ethic to win this particular scholarship. And it's been great. We've had 2 Temple winners so far.
That's right.
Josh Rager and Dan Koob. Dan is actually covering the Green Bay Packers right now for a television station out in Green Bay. He moved from Nebraska to Green Bay. And Josh Rager is working in Philadelphia doing a variety of different roles for a number of the teams, including the Sixers and the Phillies and people like that on television. So he's more of a behind-the-scenes guy, whereas Dan Koob and Dan Kurish, who was our winner last year from LaSalle, are guys that are in front of the camera. So it's been great. We're looking forward to doing even more as the years move on. But folks can go to phillybroadcasters.org to download the application.
Well, it sounds like a great cause. I will see you tomorrow night at the Liacouras Center. I appreciate you coming on today. Don't be a stranger of this show, and let's talk to you again real soon.
All right, Zach, you got it, bud. See you soon.